Alrighty then, hey guys, welcome back. I'm LDC and it is day 7 of my Agrarian Skies 2-week challenge series. Got a lot to cover today, got a lot to do, a lot going on, so we're just going to jump straight into it. First, the news. Yesterday I grabbed a bunch more low-hanging fruit quests that were just sort of lying about. I recorded that, but it sort of took too long and wasn't really that interesting, so I just cut it, but I did, I made a sludge boiler, some stuff in for the hoarding maybe, some stuff in Go With The Flow, some sewage, might as well grab that, because I made a sewage bucket. I did the destabilize redstone quest, some other various things, nothing actually interesting. It was just just grabbing stuff, got 8 reward bags worth of Silk Touch enchanted swords. Okay, so I made myself a wireless terminal with this thing over here. I also grabbed a resonant flux capacitor, which I shift right clicked on my hotbar, so that's going to keep this charged, so it's actually useful. If you don't do that, it dies, runs out of battery, basically straight away. I also made myself a second jetpack, so now I always have one charged, so I don't have to wait around for that. And I also to that added the rainbows effect, because, for a bit of consistency. So also I swapped out the Enderman I was grinding downstairs, threw in a cow I had in a safari net. There he is. He was in there for a couple of hours and got me, 3,700 leather, 7,400 beef. So that's pretty cool. That didn't take very long. Right, so in terms of building, I replaced the tree farms over here. They're exactly the same setup, they're just digitized with applied energistics. I'm not taking sludge, I don't care about sludge. And pretty much the same thing. The rubber and such I was doing, I'm now doing over here in this rubber plastic thing, and it's keeping buffers of things in case I need them. We'll move on to this animal farm. So I've got some tiered animal farms here. These are just ranches and sewers. There's no chronotypers, there's no breeders, I'm not making babies and breeding and murdering babies. If I'm going to be doing anything like that, I'm going to do it much more efficiently downstairs. So we've got chickens in the first one, and that's just a vacuum hopper grabbing eggs. It's not doing a very good job, I'll move it later. And then we've got 4 of these which are full of grass with a sewer and a rancher, which I'll just go in here and see. It's behind that cow, just trust me. And what this means is I've got 4 here. Each of these ranches is hooked up to a fluid and a regular interface, and the sewage is hooked up to a fluid interface, and chickens are actually spawning because it's grass. But what that means is I can swap out any of these for any animals, just coming along and murdering the cows, and replacing them by making new spawn eggs with blood magic. So this will basically mainly be for cows, mushrooms, and sheep. Pigs don't ranch anything, but I need the wool, the milk, and the mushroom soup. So here we have our farm system. So you can see this might be a bit different to some of the standard farms, because there's this enormous fucking hole in the middle. Sorry, that's my first sweary word all series. But it's basically the same as you'd usually expect. There's an accumulator with a sprinkler, keeping everything fertilized and wet, I guess. Under that there's the planter, and so these planters are just set to have stuff exported into them. They're filled with cobble in all slots but one, so I don't end up with piles of junk in the planter. That goes all the way up. These big holes, by the way, may seem inefficient because I could plant, another 8 plants here, but the reason for that will become apparent later. So I've just got some glowstone bricks flying around to light everything up. And a harvester on the side of these. These are all tin upgrades, by the way, so that they're doing a 9x9 properly. The harvesters, again, just pumping out regular items in the regular interface. No sludge collection at all. I'm not doing stuff with sludge beyond what I have to for quests. And they've all got levers on them, so if things get out of hand, which they're not obviously yet, but if they do, we can shut that all down and just have nice little farms. So right now I've got 2 of these doing potatoes, and 1 doing blackberries for no real reason. I'm not getting into mad farming yet. These are really just kind of set up you know, if I were to use this to try and do the 50,000 lettuce quest now, I'd be a bit stuck. So they're gonna take an upgrade or two later to help them grow things a bit faster. On the 5th one, we've got netherwort, and that's just going to keep doing netherwort. I'm going to be using a reasonable amount of netherwort later, so it's nice to have that on stock. And up here, the final check, this mycelium has finally started spreading. This is my witchwater and mushroom farm, so it's pretty simple really. We've got export buses pumping water into these barrels, and import ones pumping the witchwater out. You can see these are set to witchwater. The top ones are set to just regular water. Water goes in, mycelium turns into witchwater, it drains out. While that's happening, mushrooms grow, so this is set to small shrooms, so it's going to grab all those. It's not hooked up yet. I've got some cable here to hook that up with, so I might do that now, actually. I'll just throw that down. These should start filling with water, and they do. That's going to start turning into witchwater. Little mushrooms start growing, and the harvest is going to collect those. There, that one is gone already. This is a really fast system. The only bottleneck is the storage I have for witchwater. If I want more mushrooms, I can more or less just void witchwater. But of course I'm going to pile up a lot of it so I can use it to make soul sand for the 10,000 soul sand quest. So I'm just going to let this run for a bit and give me nice stocks of mushrooms and water. Right, next, so I got all that redstone I wanted. I woke up this morning with about 30,000 redstone. I now have, is that an 8 or a 3? They're a little bit hard to see. 18, yeah, so I've used a lot of that redstone, which is why I wanted so much. So I came over here. Yesterday we stopped at Tesseract frames, so I'm making blizz powder. So that's redstone into snowballs. And then over here, try and do this in a vague sort of order. We've got the Oathium set up. So we've got this one jamming Cryothium dust from that blizz powder. It knows how to make the Cryothium dust using the blizz powder in the molecular assembler chamber into the crucible. So if I'm out of Cryothium, and it's going to keep me a stock of 200 buckets. Same here with Pyrothium, because why not? I need 50 buckets for a quest, so I'm just doing that, just jamming Pyrothium I'm making into the magma crucible. So over here, with some of those things, I'm throwing Electrum, dust, and this one, to make Fluxed Electrum Blend. As you can see, I've even put a sign up. The way I'm getting that Electrum Blend is because I'm not keeping any pulverized dusts. I'm literally cooking Electrum in my alloy thing over here, and then there's one pulverizing it over here someplace, Electrum Dust. So I get a stock of 384 Electrum Dust. I also get a stock of 2 stacks Fluxed Electrum Blend. I might turn that up. Want more of that. And then 4 stacks of Fluxed Electrum Ingots. Below that triggers this to throw the Electrum Blend in here with the constant supply of Pyrothium dust to make the ingots. Right, so also with the gelid Cryothium I'm making, 200 buckets worth, I've set up this system. I don't usually do this, but it's just a straight interface with a crafting recipe above a transposer. So I fill the transposer with Cryothium, and now I can call florbs full of Cryothium in a crafting recipe. I've got one in here. It's got a crafting recipe. The reason I'm not keeping a stock of that is because I literally will only ever use them to fill a reactor, which we'll get to in just a minute. But there's no other use for these Cryothium florbs, and you can see I've got a bunch on hand ready to go. Right, so some other things happened. I finally, because I had the redstone, was comfortable putting together my steel mill. So it's just gunpowder from my mob farm, redstone from my laser drill, sand from my sand machine, all getting pumped into the various ducts. Oh, and I'm making charcoal blocks. The mech knows how to make those, so this is set to craft charcoal blocks and put them in the fuel section. This denotes fuel. Fuel section of the high oven here, which is just a maxed out 8 high oven. And it's the same for, you know, all the various parts, the purifier, the oxidizer, the reducer, etc. So that's keeping that stocked at all times. All I have to do is come along, get some blocks of iron, like so. I'm going to do like 10 blocks of iron, throw them in here, bloop, and that's just going to melt that down, form liquid steel. It's going to get pumped out here, form blocks of regular steel in these casting basins, which is then just going to be pumped out by these import buses. So that's steel solved, as long as I've got the iron for it. I'm making charcoal, by the way, I didn't mention. This rubber tree farm making me plastic. The logs are pretty useless, so I'm cooking all those rubber tree logs. I'm not cooking any oak logs. The oak is partially going through the sawmill to make the sawdust I need. So here, into the sawmill for the floors, because you need sawdust for floors, which is going to raise my, plank efficiency. But beyond that, it's not really that useful. Beyond sawdust, raising the plank efficiency isn't a big deal. It's very easy to get logs. Right, so next to the steel mill, got these QDSs set up. So the way these work, if you haven't seen this system before, it's not my system, obviously. It's just something I saw on the internet. But when the QDS has a comparator behind it, and a task has been selected, so let's, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Oh, can we select a task, please? Why can I not select a task? Okay, I didn't anticipate this difficulty. Select task. So select task. It goes and opens up, and this lights up. That's an interesting function of the QDS and the comparator. There's, as far as I can tell, no way that that's like a natural design. I'm happy to be corrected on this, but it's kind of like it turns a pulse into a toggle state. I don't know, but the way it is that now that when this has a quest active on it, I don't know how to turn that off. Can I? Oh, shit. Oh well, that's just going to be that for now, I guess. So when this has a quest active, this is going to emit a redstone signal. This is set to active with signal, and I have two of these, one for fluids, one for solids. So that means that I can then put, like, say, this is the toast quest, so if I had 10,000 toast, I would put toast in here, it would throw 10,000 toast in. When the quest was complete, this would shut down, this would turn off, and this would stop throwing toast in, which means I wouldn't lose all that toast. I'm just going to pick this up, and that should have reset quest. Yep. So that's that system. Over here as well, I forgot to mention earlier, right, didn't just forget to mention, I forgot completely. Iron has the same problem as gold, where in the pulverizer it produces thermal expansion iron, and but the nether stuff produces applied energistics iron. So I've just set that up in the unifier. There's other ways you could go about that. Because I'm just cooking that iron, I could have come over here, set this item duct, sorry, because I've got regular iron going through, just set it to like use, oh, it already is using these things, it wasn't cooking it, but there's other ways to go about it, but this was sort of the simplest. I already had the unifier going on. Right, the next thing was, oh yes, with the milk I'm getting from the cows, and I'm getting water from my water system downstairs. I also set up these little cyclics, and they're just throwing fresh milk and fresh water into the system, so I'm keeping buffers of those as well, and that's going to be very helpful later for doing foodstuffs. Oh, and this, I forgot to mention, this I should have mentioned earlier, this is just taking excess saplings from this system and mulching it to dirt. It's a pretty poor, slow dirt system, but I figured it'd best get like a little bit going, because I used it to make these farms. We'll be getting into actual dirt production for the dirt quest, the 650,000 dirt or whatever it is. That's going to be a whole other system. Right, so the last thing, I guess, before we get on to the florb action, is I made here a, don't mind me, I'm just grabbing a sandwich, cyanite reprocessor. I needed this for turbines. I'm going to be making some turbines, guys. So each turbine, just in the controller, the turbine controller, requires plutonium. All the other components just require cyanite, really, but the controller does require 2 plutonium. So you just throw, I've got an export bus dropping water in here with this set to blue so it can accept it. And I've thrown like half a stack of cyanite, the junk product of the reactors, in here, and it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 cyanite becomes a plutonium. So I threw in half a stack and took 2 to make my first controller. And so that being said and done, we can move on to the actual interesting thing I've done, which is this little guy. He's pretty fat, actually. His friends don't like him. So this is going to be my first permanent reactor. These two here are just temporary little jobs to give me enough power to get to this point. So it's a 15 by 15 by 6. It's got a bunch of fuel rods, and importantly it has a gap of 4 between them and the wall. That really helps with your radiation in terms of these emanating little guys to increase yields. So this is an efficient reactor. This is kind of a monster. It's not finished yet, obviously. I've got to fill it with coolant. But we'll just go around the outside. You can see I've got these squares all around it. These are 7 by 7 squares, and I've got 8 of them. These denote where my turbines are going to go. So you can see I wanted to, well, you can't actually see, but I originally wanted to put this on the ground, but the whole thing was too big. I'm jammed up at the edge here. This chunk boundary is the edge of my chunk loaded area, and I don't really want to expand that if I can help it. We're just going to be living in the same 3 by 3 chunks. So each of these little rings is going to be a turbine. It's going to be a 7 by 7 by 17 high turbine. In order to get the maximum 80 turbine blades and 37 Endurium blocks I want in each turbine. We've got here the coolant ports. This is how this whole system is going to work. It's going to be a closed loop of steam. The water is going to come out the top here, go into the turbine. I am in the turbine space. There are no turbines here, obviously. That's going to take the steam, condense it back down into water, and it's going to cycle back through. So I've got those going all the way around to the outside, and that just means I don't really have to mess about with transporting huge amounts of steam and water to get this guy running. We've just got one fluid export bus filling this with water, and that's easily going to be enough, because it's slowly going to fill, but it's never going to lose any. So that's that pretty much sorted. You can see I don't have a lot of space here because these turbines are attached, and they're 7 by 7. We've got these little slits of the actual reactor that are going to be open. So I've got the controller here, but all of this space is going to be covered. So, in order to get this guy going, we're going to fill it with cryothium right now, which is why we've got all these flobs. Most of you have probably guessed that, it's pretty clear. We're going to try and be as efficient as possible with these. I've brought myself 256, and I think that's going to be enough. I'm just sort of going to go boop, boop. It's worth bearing in mind the way you can kind of do this to increase your efficiency. The coolant works if it's source or flowing, which helps a hell of a lot, because you can kind of look at it like this. This block and this block, whoops, these hurt as well, source blocks, and they're stacked 4 high, so to get them this height. It's worth looking at the source blocks like little crosses, and trying to make little crosses kind of fit together as much as possible with as little overlap as possible. So there I've brought 2 blocks of glass across. I'm not putting a single block of cryothium down every second layer, because I'm using the cross function that the source blocks create to overlap along here, alternating, in order to cover those up. I'm not doing this actually as efficiently as I could. I didn't plan this out properly beforehand. It's just sort of gut instinct. It might be worth doing something similar. I've also lost a bunch of cryothium balls by misclicking. So that's just something to keep in mind. Alrighty then, so we've got ourselves an enormous cryothium pool there. I didn't check my timer to see how long that took, but it certainly felt a hell of a lot quicker than the old way of using buckets. You know, if you don't have the Buildcraft item that fills an area with fluid for you. I've forgotten what it's called. The name escapes me right now. But yeah, I brought 256 florbs. I've got 32 and 9, so 41 left, and I'd throw away probably like another 9 or 10 or something. Just doing this by, you know, misclicking and throwing them about. So yeah, probably about 200-ish I used. I didn't count this out. 256 was just sort of a guess, and it seems to be enough. So that's cool, we've filled this thing up. We complete it now, put that last piece in, we've got ourselves a multi-block. Now, just by itself, without any of these coolant ports, because you add one reactor coolant port to this, it becomes a steam-based reactor. This sort of thing would put out around about 35k RF a tick. With turbines, we're going to get 190k. So that's a pretty big leap. We're going to build our first turbine now and use it to power 2 more laser drills I have sitting waiting patiently. Because we need, as I've mentioned, I think in the past, we need more resources. So I'm going to get set up to grab all this turbine stuff and be right back. Alright, so we've got the frame of this thing up. It's a 7x7x17. I'm just going to go over some of its facets. So you can see I've just added the same matching fluid ports. Red is steam, blue is water, so water goes out, steam comes in, and it loops. All good is all good is all good. The controller is just sitting up here. I'm going to throw the power port down here. That's going to go straight to a tesseract, which I'm going to set to block items and low fluids. Just as an FYI, you can also obviously use tesseracts for moving your steam and water, because they're pretty much infinite. But that's okay, we're making a closed loop. So, send only energy, and we're going to set that to the drills function. So now that's going to start pumping energy to the drills. Once it has energy, obviously we've got some work to do. Right, so this is a 7x7x17 reactor, as I mentioned earlier. The trick with these is, in order to get max power out of a single turbine, you want to have 80 rotor blades to fully cope with the, it's not, it's not 13, it is 15, so I need 2 more of these shafts, that's a bit silly. You need 80 blades and 37 Enderium coils. Enderium is the best coil block in this version. I believe it's upgraded to something crazy in the 1.17 version of the mod pack. So, to get those 80, to fit them in, the 80 blades and the 37 coils, you need a reasonably large reactor. Now, because the max size of these things in the left, the south, north, east, west direction, the max size is 16. So you'll find a lot of people building up a 16 reactor and then throwing down and making it 9x9, because when it's 16 long, you need a 9x9 to fit all those things in there. But of course you can fit, it's a bit silly really, because you can fit exactly the same blades and Enderium in a 9x9 reactor that's only 14 long. So you end up with 2 whole blocks worth of empty space. So this is just going to go straight from blades and then into Enderium, like so. I'm putting the Enderium at the top for no real reason, honestly, just has to go somewhere. So it's 37 of these, like so. So there's no gap here. In a 9x9x16, there's going to be a gap of 2. So already you're wasting materials by making that space. So you could make a 9x9x14. Now that would be all very well and good. The issue with that is, well, the benefit that has over this is because it's less than 17 long, you can lie it down on its side. I can't lie this down on its side. It's too big that way. If the game doesn't like it, it'll shut me down. But the disadvantage it has is making a 9x9x16 instead of a 7x7x17 increases the surface area in general that you have to build. These blocks are quite expensive. There's a lot of steel, there's a lot of nether quartz. They're pricey items. And when you're building a lot of them, like I am, some of these differences do start adding up. So, if you'll allow me to indulge in maths for a little second, if I were to have built this as a 9x9x16, that would involve 2 walls of 9x14, 2 walls of 7x14, and 2 walls of 7x7, which totals 546 blocks to make a 9x9x16 turbine. 546. And that's just casing. Obviously you're going to replace some with controllers and such. But this is a 7x7 by 17, which means it takes 2 walls of 7 by 17, 2 walls of 5 by 17, and 2 walls of 5 by 5, which gives 458. So that's 90 less blocks I'm having to make with, steel and ridiculous amounts of cyanite and such. 90 less, which is not insignificant at all. So these 7 by 7 by 17 turbines are, as far as I can tell, about as good as it gets. The only issue is you have to stand them upright. Just make sure you have your 80 blades and your 37 Enderium, and you're more or less set. Obviously you can do things like, you don't have to make the biggest turbine, you can make lots of littler turbines, you can do all kinds of junk. It's a free country. I'm just going to light this up, because again, we might get bad guys spawning, and I'm against that. I believe those numbers are the same for the updated version of this pack, of big reactors even, the 1.17 version. Like I say, there are new coils that are better than Enderium. But I think all the other facets are the same. I don't know though, I haven't played a lot with that pack yet. With that mod yet. So I'm just going to finish this up, and be back when it's ready to rock. Alrighty then, so that didn't take very long. It took about as long to finish it as it did to put down those 2 torches to get rid of all the yellow crosses. So now we hook everything up. It's really just missing this, which is going to start pumping water, Yellorium, into the main reactor. So this main reactor now is, as you can see, filling. Oh geez, I better turn that speed up. That's not very good at all. Filling with stacks of Yellorium. I don't have a lot of this stuff left. I've actually been making a net loss on it because my power currently is quite inefficient. So I'm going to turn this on. And it's going to take a little while to fill with water. You can also see it's using a lot of Yellorium right now, and boy do I not need it to. So the trick there is to turn down all these by quite a way, which is a bit tedious. I don't think in this version there's any shift-clicking macros to do them all at once, which would be quite nice. We'll get onto that in a bit. This should start filling with steam now. As you can see, a lot of steam in there. I'm going to activate the turbine, and it's going to spin up very slowly. Putting out 100 RF, 200, that's just going to crank all the way up. It's going to take it a little bit of time actually. You can see though that power's already going into these, so when I do this, and configure all these precharges, it's got a tiny bit of energy, but it's actually going to start working once I get rid of this. Very slowly, 21, 22, 23, because it's splitting power between these two. Whoops, that's the wrong tool for the job. So there we go. That's really just going to take a little bit of time, not only for the blades to reach max speed, but also for the water that I've got slowly pumping in to fill this with steam and have my closed system reach a certain kind of equilibrium. You can see I'm way maxed out at 440, so that's something like, off the top of my head, about 30 Yellorium in an hour, which is just too many, so I'm going to turn all these way down, get it to a nice spot, and we'll be back after that and see if there's any more time. Alrighty guys, so I've been tinkering around with my fuel gauges. We're sitting at 10% capacity if we control rod is at 90%, and you can see that I'm easily putting out the 2000 millibuckets per tick that one turbine requires. It's costing me 0.4 MB a tick of Yellorium, which equates to about, I guess, 3 Yellorium in an hour. So that 3 Yellorium an hour is powering 2 laser drills, whereas before that guy was using 10 and only powering 1. So this is where your efficiency really increases. I might need to turn this up. These heats are still going down, and at some point they might go under like a certain equilibrium point and stop producing the steam I need. But that's okay. If I need to turn it up, I'll turn it up. It's no big deal at all. We're getting mad efficiency out of this. So over the next day or so, we're going to be filling out all these turbines, completing all of these. When this is maxed out, when this is really going, it's going to be able to power 19 laser drills. So that's quite a lot. I might even be adding more after that. We'll just see how it goes. The issue is we're coming up to the halfway point. This is day 7. You can see in about 10 hours, it's going to be day 8. So by the end of the 2-week period, I want to have done every quest, and that includes a quest that calls for about 360,000, very vague ballpark number, 360,000 gold. So I've been running that drill for a while, and I've got like 1,500. So we really need to amp that up like hella quick in order to finish this. This is gonna be okay, but I need to be adding turbines as quick as I can. But that really is all the time we have for tonight. I would say that tomorrow I'm going to start Blood Magic, but I've said that about 3 times now, and never really got around to it, so I don't want to make any promises anymore. I do think we will get into Blood Magic, because I'm going to be using Blood Magic to upgrade these farms to actually crank me out some decent... Oh look, my blueberries. I've got some more blueberries. I've done nothing, I put down 1 seed. They're just sadly slowly growing. So yeah, maybe some Blood Magic tomorrow, but then maybe not, maybe some other thing. But anyway, thanks so much for stopping by. We really are out of time, I say for like the 4th time. As always, it has been a pleasure. This has been day 7 of my Agrarian Skies 2-week challenge. I've been LDC, you've been excellent. Stop by tomorrow for day 8, where I'll continue my quest to complete Agrarian Skies in just 14 days.